Hello and welcome to another Looking at Stuff video. This one is celebrating one of my favorite times of the year, Halloween. There are a very, very small portion of my collection, but I'm not here to talk about my collection. Red crayon, sharpener. So, I'm here to talk about just some favorite memories of mine. Halloween memories. Let's see, not especially visible. Doesn't seem like it, so it's a very easy solution for that. And that solution is the collected works of O. Henry. All right. Well, here it is. So, Halloween memories. Because Halloween has always been a really important time in my life. I think it was a holiday my mother loved, and so she passed that on to me. And let's start with trick-or-treating, because, of course, when you think of childhood Halloween, trick-or-treating is always what comes first. So, I lived, my neighborhood was, I lived here, right, kind of the corner. These were duplexes. So technically the other guy was on the corner, but I was there. And my grandparents were here. And then you have this major road here. It's like 2 lanes on each side. Now I know what you're thinking. 2 lanes? Is that major? It is in a town of 20,000 people. It's more like 5,000, but if you count environs, then you end up at 20,000. And then on the other side was a mall called the Carrefour. And because this was located here, made this road pretty busy. Plus, people live down this way, and then downtown is over here. Like, you keep going down this road, and it goes over down a hill, and then it goes across a bridge, and you end up downtown. And then here, there's just a street, and then a ravine. If you can believe it, a ravine, and then nothing but woods. So, and then here, there were so these were duplexes, but back here you had big block apartments back here. And that was it. This was my neighborhood. It was, housing for low-income families is what it really was. But also for people expropriated from the land that got turned into parkland. So I was here because of low income. My grandparents were here because of expropriation. So anyway, that's not especially Halloween related, but so on Halloween, we'd start by setting out from here and, go from house to house and knock and say trick or treat and get candy. With my little sack, I was like I think at school they would give us out these Halloween sacks that had like cats and stuff on them. They're always kind of cool. I miss those. You don't see those anymore, I don't think. And this house, one year, I don't know why, but I ended up getting to it late, or no one was there when I first went. So when I came back and knocked, they were out of candy. So they went and found some Halloween clings or stickers that they hadn't put up and gave me the entire sheet. That's the kind of thing that sticks with you. And on the other side of the street, there was a house here, and this guy stood out because he always gave full-size candy bars. That's so amazing. It has to go outside the neighborhood, of course. So of course, this was always exciting. But then on the other side, there was one house here. This lady who would make, that's right, homemade candy, also known as fudge. But it's been a long time, but I seem to recall it was, I would say vanilla brown sugar fudge, right? It wasn't, it was just straight up candy. It wasn't flavored with chocolate, or there's almost certainly vanilla in it, but it was not flavored. It was just straight up sugar candy. And, these days, that would never happen, right? I mean, parents today all go to this horrible thing called, I don't know if you've heard of it, trunk or treat, where basically they go to their local church's parking lot, or maybe a library or something, and a bunch of people show up there and with candy in their trunks of their car, and the kids go from car to car saying trick or treat. I assume they don't say trunk or treat, because that would be stupid. But they say trick or treat, and then someone gives them candy from the trunk of the car. Maybe some people decorate the cars. I really, really don't know. But you're missing something, because part of the excitement in going from house to house is seeing all the decorations that these other people put up, how they made their home welcoming for this evening, and the type of candy they get. Well, I guess you still get that at the trunk or treat, but you don't get the way they've decorated their yard and their home, and the atmosphere it creates, the atmosphere of just kids all over the neighborhood in costumes. And of course, in my hometown, October 31st is sometimes you're getting freezing temperatures already, so sometimes it's cold enough that walking isn't really much of an option. I mean, you can walk down the street, but then you definitely need, your parents or someone's parents to pick you up in a car and drive you to the next spot in some warmth, or just have a really warm costume. I had some costumes that were extremely warm, so, and I'll tell you about those later. But never went back to these apartments. You wouldn't get candy there. There's also a retirement home here where it was like all elderly people, and I tried going there once and asking if anyone would have candy, and they told me no, go away. So really it was just around this area and around this area, and this area back here didn't really have stuff either. So it was really this side, and this side, and right here. Oh yeah, and there are houses along here too, and these gave candy away. So, and generally, you get houses here when I got older, and I stopped actually going out myself and decided I wanted to see more costumes than decorations. I would start giving out candy, and it would be normal to get 100 to 120 trick-or-treaters in a night. So a lot more than could possibly live in this neighborhood. Because you see, after clearing out the neighborhood, oh, one more thing. I had a friend here. His name was Timmy. And unfortunately, he died when he was only 13. He was hit by a truck right here on this road. It's a sad story. His parents would put out one of those tent carports every winter, and it was a bad, strong wind, and it was starting to blow away the carport. So they asked him to go out and fix it so it doesn't blow away. And when he grabbed it, the wind just happened to gust. He got caught in the carport, pulled him out into the street, and a truck hit him. I remember it was a very strange feeling when I got that news. I think it was the first person I knew who died. Anyway, but cool that one thing he would do is where a lot of us, after we cleared the neighborhood, our parents would take us downtown and we'd do another area, or we'd go other places, but he would go home, change his costume, and make the rounds of the neighborhood all over again. So he'd hit the full-size chocolate bar guy a few times. That's another thing in Canada. We don't use the word candy bar, we call it a chocolate bar. And we have amazing, of course I live in America now, I'm in Oklahoma, but then we had one, I don't think you have these, Wonder Bar, Mirage, O. Henry, Arrow. Of course we also had Reese's, so Reese's is of course amazing. I do not like chocolate anymore. Long story, but I got burned on chocolate. But I will say Canada has the best candy bars in the world. Arrow, if you have not tried it, is incredible. It's like Arrow and Mirage are kind of the same, except Arrow is flat and Mirage is like I don't know, like a thick thing, and they're like bubbly. It's solidified, bubbled chocolate, and it kind of crackles, and it's an amazing feeling in your mouth, and it's delicious. Oh, Coffee Crisp. I don't think you have Coffee Crisp here. It's like coffee flavored nougat kind of stuff inside. That's not nougat. It's like I don't know, like a solid cream or something, or a milk solid. I don't know. It's hard to, with a wafer underneath, it's hard to describe. Coffee Crisp is truly a unique bar. O. Henry is another one that's extremely good. Man, there's more. Oh, there's one that doesn't even exist anymore, but it was called Caravan. And it had this like clear caramel inside of it that was like, I don't know, it was almost like corn syrup or something. It was very unique, delicious. Anyway, yeah. So I'm pretty sure this guy would give out O. Henry's. And O. Henry's were a very large chocolate bar, right? They were, I don't know if you have Mr. Big in the U.S., but they're another, because I don't eat chocolate anymore, so I don't know, but there's another very big one. But I'd say, O. Henry was probably, an 8-inch chocolate bar, But, men tend to exaggerate inches, so can't tell you for sure. Maybe it was only 6. It was a big chocolate bar. So anyway, yeah, Timmy would load up, but most everyone else would, or for me anyway, would clear the neighborhood, and then my mother or my friend's mother, whoever I was trick-or-treating with, would drive us. And so when you go down here, you can go across the bridge to downtown, or you can continue this way and this way, and here you have the bay, and all around the bay you have houses with fairly large properties. So it's not like a neighborhood where you can get out of your car and walk door to door. Here you have to get driven to each house. So these people got far fewer trick-or-treaters, but the ones that did celebrate Halloween, because they knew they got fewer trick-or-treaters, they would give away more candy. And then this side as well, you have a beach area, but then you have all around it more neighborhoods with houses here. And like my aunt used to live down here. She would she would go all out decorating. And I had another aunt downtown. She would also, her husband loved Halloween, so he would do crazy decorations, and they would get like 200 to 300 trick-or-treaters downtown. 200 to 300. Can you imagine that? Where I live now, we get 30. So, and then downtown was good because, like here, you could just get out and walk door to door. So, those were good times. I really miss it. One year, when I was a little older, I'd say about, I think 12, I thought it would be funny to dress as a female character. So I dressed as a nurse, and I used balloons for breasts. And one house I went to, there was an old man who was just sitting there, for some reason I went inside the house, like just through the front door. And this old man wasn't doing anything, and while they were getting me candy, suddenly he pulled out a pocket knife and started trying to pop my breasts. So he did not succeed, but I escaped with my full bosoms. Yeah, but things were different then, right? A lot more trusting. You would just sometimes go into someone's house and see the decorations they had inside. One year, when I was doing the handing out candy instead of trick-or-treating, I actually convinced my mother to turn our home into a haunted house. And because the floor plan was, you walked in, so this is the entrance, and you have the kitchen right here where you enter. You have a hallway that goes here, leads into the living room, and then the living room has another hallway here that leads right back to the kitchen. Then you just have a staircase going upstairs here and downstairs to the basement here. It's really, really big place. So decorated all along the hallway to make it spooky. Then they came out in the living room and we had stuff there. Then they would come around this way and we'd have more stuff in the hall, and then they came out back into the kitchen where they'd get their candy and could go. And to be honest, I don't remember what exactly we did. There was a smoke machine, a fog machine, I should say. And this mask was used in there. That mask is from, I believe it is now about 28 years old. So it is older than some of you, and it's plush. And it was pretty easy to convince my mother because she actually ran a real haunted attraction one year. It was, she owned a business, a museum, and around Halloween, when the tourist industry was dried up, she decided, let's just turn it into a haunted attraction, make a few extra bucks. And they had a carpenter build like a really cool coffin that would actually open. And this was a pretty big house, it was a whole museum. And they had, one of the attractions was you'd go upstairs and there'd be one room that your tour guide would take you into, and it would just be like some creepy stuff all around the room. And there'd be some creature standing in the corner very still, this creature. And it was actually me wearing that mask, standing super still. And well, when the tour guide would take them in and start pointing out other objects and telling them it's haunted history, while they were distracted, I would slowly edge toward them, with it trying to do so without them noticing. So very quietly, little step at a time. And then once they got suspicious, then I would just kind of lunge, and that would make them freak out. It was pretty exciting. But then I always felt guilty about scaring them, so I would take off my mask like almost right after scaring them, because I thought this would put them at ease. I don't know. I was only like 11, and the funny thing is, so I used to have long hair when I was a kid, long blonde hair, and there was this like 20-something guy who was a friend of the family. So this guy who knew us came and he brought his friends, and this 20-year-old guy was like, man, who is that girl back there? And he was talking about me, like this 11-year-old boy, and then I went downstairs later, and this guy, his face was so red. Oh my gosh. And yeah, very, very awkward. But yeah, another weird thing. They had like this crystal ball in the haunted attraction in this house. Was supposed to be a haunted house, actually, because the people who lived there before, the house that was used as the museum used to be an actual house, and the family that lived there were like rumored to be, at least the woman that owned it, she was this old lady, and she was rumored to have, they had a term for it back then. Back in the old days in Quebec, they would call it like gifted. I don't know. She had, there was a term for it. They would say she had something. But anyway, that she was rumored to have the ability to put curses on people, and some people were very afraid of her. But everything went fine with buying the house from her. There was no trouble. But she even had this. It didn't help that she had a child there who was deformed. He had like I don't know the details, but from what I understand, he was kind of like a seal. Like his legs were kind of joined together, or flipper-like in some way, and they would call him the Marl. No idea what it meant. What is a Marl? No idea, but that's what they would call him, the Marl. And I don't know what happened to him, but this old lady was living there alone, and one of her sons convinced her to sell the house to become this museum, and the museum lasted for only like 2 years, but one of those years, this haunted attraction. Anyway, so it was rumored to be haunted because of her, and there was a crystal ball in there, and just for fun, I said, I'm just going to look into this ball, and the first thing that pops into my mind, I'm just going to say it, see if I can prognosticate, and came into my head, beware the one-eyed man, so I said that, and later that night, when my mother was giving tours for the haunted house, there was this part where a tall man came in. And he was an old man, and the house was built a long time ago, not anticipating very tall people. So she had to tell him to watch his head in one spot. And he said, oh, thanks for letting me know. I wouldn't want to lose my other eye. And sure enough, he was a one-eyed man. But nothing to beware. He was just a normal paying customer. Anyway. And then that haunted attraction, let's see if I can remember it. So there was like a porch area that you'd come in. And then from there, you'd have what used to be the kitchen. There's another door here to like a area you can walk down. And I believe people would park here, and then they'd walk up here, and they'd come into the kitchen area, and they'd pay here. Then they'd be taken into this, I think you'd call it I don't know, I guess it was kind of an atrium. It served the function of a hallway really, or a dining room, I don't know, it had another door to it that was never used. And then there was 2 rooms here. And then there was a staircase here. And then the staircase led to an actual hallway that had, I think, room here, and I want to say there was another room here, so probably 3 rooms. And then the kitchen also had another staircase that had its own upstairs. That was like above here, but this was not used for the haunted house. They'd take people in here, they'd pay here, they'd go into this area, and there was a fog machine, and it was smoky as shit in here. And then they'd be led into this room first, where there was this homemade animatronic coffin thing that would scare the crap out of people. And then they'd be brought here, and I don't remember what was there. And then they'd come upstairs, and upstairs, it was like this. Upstairs, it would be and that was me. I was in this room. I want to say there was actually nothing on this side. It was just like 3 rooms here. See, it's been a long time. And then in this room, there was something else. In this room, something else. Then after that, they'd be led back downstairs and out the front. So, I don't really remember all what the scary setup was. But I do know a lot of the props and stuff that was used, or some of the props that was used in that attraction I still have here. This was in Quebec, but I have them down here in Oklahoma. 28 years later. Let's see. What else? Well, oh yeah, so I was going to talk about my costumes. So, one thing about costumes is my mom used to, when I was a kid, she loved Halloween so much, she would make me these incredible costumes. And when I was like, I think, 5, she made me a floppy dog costume herself by painstakingly stitching strings of yarn to this massive wool sweater, and until it was completely covered in black and white yarn. And then she did the same to a beanie hat, and she's added some ears to it, and then just like some face paint and one of those fake dog noses. And ta-da, I was a floppy dog. And that costume was so warm. I mean, you get around the neighborhood once and you were just sweating. It didn't matter the temperature outside. But that costume won me my first Best Costume Award. So this was, when I was 5, this would have been 1989. Now in 89, schools still gave out like awards for being the best at something. Now they still give out best academic awards, but they try to award participation more for things like this these days. But back then, right, they stopped doing this even in my town, somewhere in the mid-90s. But back in 89, they would award the best top 3 Halloween costumes. And I'm not sure what the award was, but they would like take a picture and stuff. And so this costume kind of looked like there's this floppy attachment that you put on your head, and then there's like a black and white ghillie suit almost, and it's just this yarn all over, and if you're lucky, your feet stuck out the bottom. But this thing was long enough that I think if I had it today, it would still go down to my knees. And I'm not super tall, but I'm 5'9", so pretty long shirt. Anyway, so then, so I won the award. I didn't even know there was an award, but I was super happy about it. Look how happy I am. And then, when I was 6, my mother decided she had to beat that. And what I really loved in 1990, what did most kids love in 1990? Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So she made me a Shredder costume. And what she did was she cut out cardboard to be his like spiky gauntlets. So she did that entirely out of cardboard, spray painted it silver. And then she went to and she even made his mask just out of cardboard, like cutting it into like circle shapes and kind of bending it where it needed to be. And then she went to a fabric place and got some purple fabric for his cape. So, it's kind of like, I don't even remember what Shredder looked like, but it's like this helmet. It has all these kind of like attachments like this, Yeah. his gauntlets were like, like that. I don't know. I haven't seen Ninja Turtles for a very long time. But unfortunately, what happened to this costume? Someone borrowed it. You know what happens when someone borrows things? They don't give them back. So we asked and asked to get this back, and they said, yeah, we'll bring it back. And of course, it was never returned. Of course, it probably just got destroyed. And they felt guilty about it. So this incredible costume was completely lost after that first year. But, in these costumes, I would wear them to school, and then I would wear them to go trick-or-treating. So this one was very complicated. Even to go trick-or-treating, it was like all these tiny cardboard attachments. You had to be careful not to hit them and stuff. But anyway, that won me best costume again. Second year in a row. Number 1. And so the best thing about winning best costume was there was this guy named Jonathan W. I'm not going to say his last name, but he came from a very well-to-do family, one of the more upper-class English people in town, English families, and upper-class English family. His parents were both professors at the college in town, and they would make him these very elaborate paper mache costumes, like sharks and birds and stuff, and he felt very entitled to win with his paper mache costumes, and I always beat him, and he would cry. And it's a very interesting thing. He was not a very nice person, right? And part of that was he didn't fit in, and he was, I guess you'd say he was a nerd, so he was picked on. But he was picked on less because of wearing glasses and all that, and more because of his kind of arrogant attitude, treating people like they were inferior. But the more people picked on him, the more he kind of regressed into this defense mechanism of, you people are beneath me, and my family is better than your family and more noble. He actually used that word, noble, than your family. And because he did that, he just fit in less and less. So his strategy for handling, his abuse just sort of invited more of it. It was a very bad strategy, but, he was just a kid, and really his family should have urged him to just be more open and social. But anyway, he was genuinely entitled, right? People use this word today for anyone who has not experienced privation, but I think being entitled takes more than just being a little spoiled. Being entitled means you really believe, everything, you ought to win everything or anything, that you are owed something. And this guy, really believed he was owed victory and best costume, and so he would cry, and throw a tantrum whenever I would win the best costume, especially since I came from a very lower class family, my poor, even single mother who worked at a bar, at a marina where his wealthy parents would go because that's where they had membership and they owned a boat, So anyway, they were very nice people, his parents, and he ended up being a friend of mine when we grew up. And he had his good parts, but he never really lost that arrogance. Anyway, so I won't lie, I really enjoyed beating him and making his entitled ass cry. Can't lie. Alright, when I was 7, what next? Well, the cardboard and the silver paint came out again to make a robot, and it was super cool. So it was like this kind of square cardboard for a hat, and it was spray painted silver with like, I don't know, I think some like things drawn on it and stuff. And this would be put on my head would fit in here, and then my face would be like grease painted silver. And then there was like this, I don't know, kind of silver shirt that I'd wear. And then just for like, and silver pants. Gray or silver, just kind of for filler. But then there'd be like, just like some gloves or something. I forget exactly what the hands were like. And then there were these, those dryer vents. These are kind of like springy. Those were put on my arms and my legs, and attached to the dryer vent at the top and the bottom was this big square cardboard box that was spray painted silver. And there's like stuff drawn on it again to make it look like machinery things, and then some LED lights were actually installed on the front with a little battery pack inside, so they would light up and they would blink. And then some old shoe boxes were used for the feet, and they were spray painted silver as well. So it was a big, clunky robot costume. It was slow to walk in and bump into things, but it was sturdy, and guess what? #1 costume in school again. And that was it. That was the last time I won best costume. From then on, I was a scarecrow. And that didn't win at all. I was a witch. And my mother used this stuff called Nox gelatin. It's basically like food-grade latex if you don't put enough water in. And this gelatin was used to kind of like sculpt the nose and everything. And I think that got like 3rd place. And then I think after that I just kind of gave up. I just started wearing masks because the school stopped doing the contest anyway. But the best one was when I was 11, 6th grade. My cousin Neil, who he was a horror movie crazy. He had collections of Fangoria and Gore Zone magazines. He introduced me to Evil Dead 2 and Night of the Living Dead, the Tom Savini remake. And he wanted to be a makeup artist. That was his lifelong dream. That did not pan out for him. He's, I think he's like assistant manager for a department store now, but he was, that's what he wanted in life. And what ended up happening, and what he did was, he had done a zombie costume for himself, and I asked him, hey, can you do that for me? And at this point, he wasn't really a jerk yet, so he went ahead and said yes. And what he did was he had this beanie hat, and he ripped or cut a big section of it out, and then he stuffed it with Kleenex, and he kind of wet them and covered them in makeup to make them look like brains. The kind of wet tissue and squeezed together kind of has like this brain-like pattern. And then he took globs of raspberry jam and put that on there and smeared it over so it looked like it's running down the hat. And he said, okay, when you're stumbling around out there as a zombie, remember every now and then stick your finger in the jam and take a taste so people can see you eating your brains. So he even gave me acting tips. Then he made up my face, so he wanted it to look like I had a horrible head injury, And then he made up my face, of course, to look like a zombie, and he put some pants on me that were all torn up and had bloody gashes in them. Same with my rest of my body, and he told me how to drag my foot and stumble, and he said, never talk to anybody, just moan and groan. But of course, I was 11, so I wasn't going to just moan and groan. I talked to people all the time. I was too proud of the costume. But the funny thing is, so it was a huge success. It was way too gruesome for elementary school, but of course, kids loved it. The boys did anyway. I don't remember anyone really having a negative reaction to it except one person, and that person was not that guy. It was actually a 4 or 5-year-old girl. So in our school, generally for recess, you had to go outdoors. You could not take recess in school. There were no activities in the school. Every recess, you had to go outdoors. So in my zombie costume, I went outdoors. What do you do when you're out there? Well, you just kind of walk around the school. So that's what I did. And ordinarily, only the older kids come out at recess and walk around. But the younger kids, I think, have a different time they have recess at. For whatever reason, they decided kindergarten would get to do recess at the same time as everybody else for Halloween. So they opened the door back here because kindergarten was in a separate area. And out came all these kids right as I was walking around in my zombie costume. And no one seemed too perturbed. But the next day, when I came into school, I was brought downstairs where the kindergarten is by one of the teachers. And she wasn't mad at me, but she said, look, there's this little girl who's terrified to come to school. She's crying. She thinks there's a monster here, namely you, the zombie, who's going to get her. You need to come down and let her know you're not really a zombie. It was just a costume. And I was very happy to oblige, and I felt terrible for that poor little girl. And, she seemed okay after that. So, that was it. Those were my childhood Halloween memories. There's so much more. Halloween is just such a wonderful, wonderful time of the year. There's something mystical about just so many people being out in the night in costumes, incognito, being free to do something so innocent and silly, and there's a purity to it, right? There are some people who ruin it with bad tricks, but overall, it really is very wonderful, and I still try to make it a very special experience for the kids who still celebrate it today. We decorate our yard with all sorts of stuff, and try to have really good candy and interactive stuff so kids can see cool animatronics. I'm not going to do it, but this thing actually crawls around and makes noise. We have tons and tons of animatronics. So, hopefully that's never lost. And I think a movie that really captures the sort of innocence and joy of Halloween, but also being a horror movie, is Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. I watch it every year on Halloween night, and I encourage you to do the same. Or Hocus Pocus, or whatever you like, but this one's pretty good. Alright, thank you for watching. I hope you all have a happy Halloween. A happy Samhain. And, like, subscribe,